Thank you for clicking on Bianca's Daily Vibes. So today we're going to be cooking. I love cooking, and that's one of my huge hobbies. And today we're going to be cooking squash with chayote. So calabasas con chayote, it's one of my favorite dishes. I'm really trying to stay away from grains this month for the month of April, just because I love eating tortillas and rice, but I also know that I need to cut it back a little bit. So stay tuned and be ready for some good cooking. The recipe itself is vegan, but you can, for those who are non-vegan or who are like me that love eating cheese, I usually make this and then add some queso fresco on top. For the calabasas, I always cut the top and the bottom of each of these. This recipe is a good recipe to, to make when you want to take a break from eating meat. And also, it just tastes good. Like, why wouldn't you want to eat something that tastes good? I love it. Initially, you cut them longwise. And then I cut them again so that you end up with, little logs. So I do that for everything. Okay, so as you can see, once I cut them in a log, like how you see here, I'm cutting them in little cubes. You don't want them too, again, we're going back to, you don't want them too thin or too thick. So what I'm going to do is, now that I have all my calabasas cut, I'm going to put them in this pan because I need all the space that I can get. I transferred my calabasas over to my sartén, to my container there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the chayote. What I like to do is I cut the end only because I can stand it up. Because sometimes this is, it's slippery. It's a vegetable and it has its own, its own juices. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut this in half. But be very careful because the last thing you want is to cut yourself. Okay. As you see here, we're going to cut that one. I'm using 2. So I'm going to cut the end. I'm going to stand it up. I'm going to cut it the same way as I did the other one. Be very careful. And then for this one, I am actually going to do it similar to the way I cut the chayotes. I am going to stand it on the side, but be very, very careful, please. Just very slowly, very careful. Cut them longwise, just like when we cut the calabasas. So they're gonna be like logs, I guess you can say. Cutting them in 4. Okay, the next thing I'm going to turn them around, cut them again. Remember, you don't want them you want them to look like a little cube. You don't want them too small though, because then you just won't find them when you're eating them. So then I'm going to move them over to the container here. So I'm going to get the onion. I'm only using a small piece, only because, I like onion, but I also don't want it to overpower. And the next thing we're going to cut is the tomatoes with a knife. And then after I cut them like this, then I cut them in little logs, exactly the same as the chayote and the calabaza, and then I cut them in squares. If you're not into spicy food, then I would suggest either taking this out completely, or what you can do is you can just cut the jalapeno in half, take out the seeds, and then use the outer part of the jalapeno, which is still pretty good. This is only if, this is optional, so don't feel pressured to add the jalapeno if you cannot withstand the amount of heat that it has. I am adding about a tablespoon of olive oil. So you're gonna let it warm up. That the oil is ready for me. I'm going to throw in the onion. Usually I just like cooking the onion until it's a tiny bit transparent. Only because once I throw in the chayotes are a little harder, so it takes a little longer to cook. So by the time that the chayotes are done, the onion is very soft. So that's that. We're gonna throw the chayotes in. So I'm going to be a little conservative regarding the sea salt just because I tend to be very heavy-handed. And then we'll just add some more once we'll just taste it once we get closer to it being done, and then we can just taste it. I like adding a little bit of pepper. I feel like you can never go wrong with pepper. And we will be adding some garlic powder. I like adding the jalapeno. Remember, this is optional, so don't feel forced to add it. I just like a little kick. The reason why I'm not adding the calabasas first is because the calabasas cooked really fast, and I really don't want them to completely dissolve within the dish. Oh well, the jalapeno. The jalapeno is spicy. Okay. So we're gonna let that cook. We're gonna increase the heat here. I'm in medium high now. Remember, the chayotes are the hardest vegetable out of this entire dish. So we're going to cover it. I'm going to mix it really fast. And then we're going to cover it. Right before covering the pan was I lowered the flame a little bit down just because you don't want it to burn. So it's been cooking for about 8 minutes. Always keep an eye on it just because you don't want it to burn or you don't want it to become mush. So I'm going to mix this around. Once we're at this stage, I lower the flame to about medium, I guess medium low or medium. And I like adding corn to this dish just because it adds a good balance off of all of the vegetables. All you're technically doing is just warming up the corn and mixing everything together. Taste it and see if it needs more salt. Remember, I did use sea salt. Sea salt can be pretty intense, so I like adding a little bit and then just tasting and adding more as I go. That's pretty good. I've had it cold and warm and it still tastes amazing. Another way that you can eat it is I like making taquitos. So, you can warm up some tortillas, put some cheese, roll it up in a taquito and eat it like that. I also like pairing it with frijoles fritos, which is refried beans. And that is something that I'll show you how to make on my next video. Okay, so here is our final product. It has calabasas, chayote, onions, tomatoes, and corn. So the way that I like eating this dish is with some queso. You can, of course, skip the step if you do not want to eat cheese. You can even go ahead and add Monterey Jack cheese too if you want to do that. So that is that, and that is my chayote with calabaza dish. Really hope that you guys liked what I just made. Calabasas con chayotes. I hope you like it. Once again, like, comment, subscribe.